Our minds are absolutely incredible, right? They're processing a ton of information every single second. And to keep up, they have to take shortcuts. But what happens when those shortcuts lead us down completely the wrong path? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today, the mind traps that trick even the smartest people out there.
So, why do our brilliant minds get things so wrong so often? I mean, think about it. We can build rockets that go to Mars, we can compose these beautiful symphonies, and yet we mess up on simple judgments every single day. The answer, it turns out, has everything to do with how our brains are wired. They're built for survival, not necessarily for getting every single fact right. Yeah, those shortcuts I mentioned, they have a name: cognitive biases. They're basically these built in patterns of thinking that, honestly, can make us misread situations and make some pretty flawed decisions. So today, we're going to break down 9 of the big ones, the most common ones, so you can start spotting them in your own life. You ready? Let's get into it. All right, first up, let's talk about how we fool ourselves. This first group of biases is all about how we see ourselves and what we believe. And honestly, these are the sneaky ones, the ways our own brain works against us when we're not even looking. Okay, so let me tell you about Frank. Frank loves his coffee. He's totally convinced it's the secret to a long, healthy life. So what does he do? He only reads articles that talk about how great coffee is. Anything that even hints at a downside? Nope, he just scrolls right past it. This is confirmation bias, and it's a big one. Our brains just love to be right, you know? So we build this little bubble around ourselves, and it makes it really hard to see the full picture. The best way to pop that bubble? Just try to find one thing that challenges what you think. Just one. This quote, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." Man, Socrates really nailed it. And it's the perfect setup for a next mind trap, which is honestly one of my favorites, the Dunning-Kruger effect. So, check out this journey. It basically shows how our confidence changes as we learn stuff. At the very beginning, when we know just a tiny bit, our confidence goes through the roof. We're standing on top of what some people call Mount Stupid because, well, we don't know enough to realize how little we actually know. Then, reality hits. The more we learn, the more we see how complex things are, and bam, our confidence takes a nosedive right into the valley of despair. It's a really humbling experience for sure, but it's also where the real work happens. Pushing through that valley is how you build genuine expertise, and with it, real, earned confidence. Okay, I'm pretty sure we've all done this. You have a great weekend, maybe go a little overboard with the spending, and then Monday comes around. And the absolute last thing you want to do is look at your credit card balance, right? That feeling? That's the ostrich effect. We literally stick our heads in the sand, hoping that if we ignore the bad news, it'll just disappear. But we all know that's not how it works. Ignoring a problem usually just makes it bigger. So what's the fix? It's just courage. You gotta face the music, even when it's not a fun song to hear. Okay, so we've talked about the traps we set for ourselves, but it doesn't stop there. These mental shortcuts also totally change how we see and judge other people. Let me ask you something. When you're late for a meeting, why is that? Oh, the traffic was a nightmare, right? The alarm didn't go off. It was something out of your control. But when your coworker is late, what's the first thing you think? Ugh, they're so lazy, so unprofessional. See the difference? That's the fundamental attribution bias. We give ourselves a pass, blaming the situation, but we blame other people's character. The easiest fix here? Just take a breath and give them the same excuse you'd give yourself. Next up is the halo effect. And it's exactly what it sounds like. We see one thing we like about someone, maybe they're really good looking or charming, and our brain just puts this imaginary halo over their head. Suddenly, we assume they must be smart and kind and funny too, even with zero evidence. This is a huge deal because it affects everything from who gets hired for a job to who we decide to trust. The key to fighting it is to try and judge people on specific things, one at a time, instead of letting one good impression make you blind everything else. Oh man, this next one. Have you ever been at a party and you spill a drink all down your shirt? And in that moment, you're absolutely convinced that every single person in the room stopped what they were doing to stare at you. That's the spotlight effect in a nutshell. We feel like there's a giant spotlight following us around, highlighting our every mistake. But here's the truth. Almost nobody noticed. Seriously, everyone else is too busy starring in their own movie, worrying about their own spotlight. And when you really get that, it's incredibly freeing. All right, we're on to our third and final section. And this is where we get to the big stuff. The biases that don't just mess with how we see ourselves or other people, but how we see reality itself. These are the ones that warp facts and figures right in front of our eyes. So picture this. It's 2010. Steve Jobs is on stage, ready to show the world the very first iPad. Everyone is wondering, how much is this thing going to cost? And then he puts this number up on the big screen behind him, $999. And he just lets that number hang there, $999. People are processing it. That becomes the anchor in everyone's mind. And then he reveals the real price, $499. And the crowd goes wild. Why? Because compared to that first number, $499 sounds like an absolute steal. That's the anchoring bias. That first piece of info we get completely frames everything that comes after. So how do we stop ourselves from getting hooked by these anchors? Well, the first step is just knowing they exist. When you're buying a car and you see that sticker price, just say to yourself, okay, that's the anchor. That's step one. Step two is you have to do your own homework. Don't just accept that first number. Go find other information, other prices, and question that initial anchor. That's how you take back control. Here's a weird one. Why are so many of us more scared of a shark attack than, say, getting a really bad sunburn at the beach? I mean, statistically, it's not even close. The answer is the availability bias. A shark attack is this huge, dramatic, memorable story. It's available in our brain. A sunburn is common. So our minds trick us into thinking the dramatic thing is the more likely thing. To beat this, you just have to pause and ask yourself, wait, am I reacting to a scary story I remember, or am I looking at the actual facts? Have you ever wondered why the news always seems so negative? Well, it's not just the media trying to scare us. It's actually tapping into how our brains work. We have what's called a negativity bias. From an evolutionary standpoint, it was way more important for our ancestors to remember the tiger in the bushes than the pretty flower. We're wired to focus on threats. It's why one mean comment can totally ruin your day, even if you got 10 compliments. Someone once said our brains are like Velcro for bad experiences and Teflon for good ones, and it's so true. That's why we have to actively, consciously make an effort to hold on to the good stuff. Okay, so we've seen how we trick ourselves, how we misjudge other people, and how we can get reality itself all twisted up. The big question is, now what? What can we actually do about all this? How do we start thinking just a little bit clearer? So what's the big secret to outsmarting all these mind traps? Honestly, it's not some crazy technique or anything you have to study for years. The single most powerful weapon you have against them is just awareness. That's it. Just knowing that these biases exist is like 90% of the battle. It's what allows you to hit the pause button on your brain's automatic reactions and just ask, hang on a second, is my brain taking a shortcut here?
So as we finish up here, I want to leave you with one last question to chew on. Out of all the mind traps we talked about today, which one do you think you fall into the most? Seriously, think about it. Are you a Frank, always looking for articles that prove you right? Or do you get hit by the spotlight effect every time you go out? Just figuring out your own pattern, that's the real first step. It's a skill that'll help you for the rest of your life. Thanks for spending this time with me.